I knew something was wrong the second my son-in-law smiled while handing me a folder and said, "Congratulations, you finally did the right thing." The problem was, I had no idea what he was talking about. 10 minutes later, I was staring at paperwork that claimed I had signed away 40 acres of the family land my father left me. My own signature was on every page. Except, I had never signed a single one. If you enjoy stories about family betrayal that reveal the truth one piece at a time, consider subscribing to Family Betrayal. And one quick note before we go any further. The faces, photos, background footage, and scenes you see are simply visual illustrations to help tell the story, not actual recordings of the people involved. My name is David. I'm 68 years old, and I spent my entire life working that land in Missouri. Every fence post, every oak tree, every creek crossing carried memories of my father and grandfather. I always believed that when I was gone, my daughter Emily would inherit everything. I trusted her husband, Ryan, because she trusted him. That was my biggest mistake. Ryan acted like the perfect family man. He helped during harvest, fixed broken equipment, and called me dad. Looking back, I realized he wasn't earning my respect. He was studying my life. One afternoon, he insisted on organizing my paperwork because he claimed older records should be scanned for safety. I thanked him. I even gave him access to my office. I never imagined he was searching for samples of my handwriting. Weeks later, he announced there was exciting news. He said a developer wanted part of my property and that I'd already agreed to sell. I laughed because I thought it was a joke. Then he placed the documents in front of me. My heart nearly stopped. The signature looked exactly like mine. Emily stared at me with disappointment instead of concern. "Dad, why are you pretending you don't remember?" In that moment, I realized someone had turned my own family against me, and I had no idea how deep the lie really went. I wanted to scream that the papers were fake, but the words caught in my throat. Emily looked at me like I was losing my memory. Ryan never raised his voice. That calm smile on his face made everything worse. He slowly pushed the documents closer and said, "Dad, you signed these almost 3 months ago. You even thanked me for handling the paperwork." I shook my head so hard my neck hurt. "No, I never signed anything selling my land." Ryan let out a quiet sigh, almost like he felt sorry for me. "Maybe you just don't remember." Those words cut deeper than any knife. He wasn't just stealing my property. He was trying to steal my credibility. That night, I couldn't sleep. I searched every drawer in my office, looking for anything that could prove I was telling the truth. Most of my old files were gone. Even the notebook where I kept handwritten notes about every property decision had disappeared. Someone had cleaned out my office. The next morning, I drove to the county recorder's office. I asked to see every document connected to my land. The clerk printed copies while I waited. The signatures looked almost perfect. Almost. There was one tiny detail. I always wrote my middle initial with a small loop. On every forged document, the loop was missing. Most people would never notice it, but I did immediately. I felt hope for the first time. When I showed Emily the difference, she barely looked at it. "Ryan says signatures change as people get older," she replied. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The daughter I had raised, the little girl whose bicycle I taught her to ride, believed her husband instead of her own father. Have you ever had someone you love choose a stranger's version of the truth over yours? Because that kind of pain stays with you. A week later, I received a certified letter. Construction equipment would begin entering my property within 14 days. Ryan celebrated before the deal was even complete. He invited friends over for a backyard barbecue, laughing about the money they were going to make. As I watched them from my porch across the field, I made one promise to myself. If I couldn't stop the sale with those papers, I'd find something older, something no forged signature could ever erase. And that's when an unexpected phone call changed everything. The phone rang just after sunrise. I almost ignored it because I hadn't slept more than 2 hours, but something told me to answer. "Mr. Carter?" the man asked. "My name is Harold. I retired as a county surveyor 15 years ago. I heard there's a dispute involving your property." I had no idea how he'd found out, but I listened. He said, "Your father never trusted the newer boundary drawings. He paid me to preserve copies of the original survey maps. I still have them." For the first time in weeks, I felt my chest loosen. "You're telling me the original maps still exist?" "They do," he replied. "And I think you should see them before anyone starts digging." An hour later, I was sitting at Harold's kitchen table. He carefully unrolled yellowed maps that had been stored inside protective tubes for decades. My father's handwriting covered the edges with notes about fence lines, easements, and one sentence I could never forget. Property may never be transferred unless all recorded boundary conditions are verified by an independent survey. Harold looked at me and said, "That note was added because your father had a legal dispute with a neighbor years ago. Every future sale had to follow that condition." Ryan's paperwork had skipped that step completely. I immediately called my attorney. Within hours, he was smiling for the first time since this nightmare began. "David," he said, tapping the old map, "if this condition was recorded with the original property records, the transfer may be legally defective. The buyer can't simply rely on forged paperwork." We rushed to the county office. After nearly an hour of searching through archived files, an employee finally found the original survey record. It matched Harold's maps perfectly. The mandatory survey verification had never been completed. Meanwhile, Ryan had no idea any of this was happening. He was already celebrating. His social media was full of pictures with expensive trucks, champagne bottles, and captions about new beginnings. Friends congratulated him for becoming a wealthy land investor. He even told Emily they should start looking at million-dollar homes before the money officially arrived. 2 days later, bulldozers rolled toward my property. Ryan stood there grinning beside the developers, convinced he had already won. Then another truck pulled in. The county surveyor stepped out carrying a long metal case. Inside were the original certified maps. The smile slowly disappeared from Ryan's face as the surveyor said 4 words that changed everything. "Stop. This sale is invalid." Ryan turned pale, but what happened next was something none of us saw coming. Ryan froze where he stood. The laughter disappeared. The developers looked at each other in confusion as the county surveyor laid the original maps across the hood of his truck. My attorney handed over copies of the archived records, and within minutes everyone understood the same thing. The sale should never have moved forward. The required boundary verification had never been completed, and the signatures transferring my land were now under serious investigation. Ryan tried to argue. He claimed it was just a paperwork mistake. Then he insisted I had forgotten signing the documents. But when the surveyor compared the originals with the forged copies, the differences became impossible to ignore. My attorney requested an immediate handwriting examination, and before the day was over, investigators opened a fraud case. The developer canceled the purchase on the spot. They wanted nothing to do with property tied to forged documents. Ryan's dream of easy money collapsed in a single afternoon. Then came the moment that hurt the most. Emily walked over to me with tears running down her face. She wasn't crying because the deal had failed. She was crying because she finally realized her husband had lied to everyone, including her. She whispered, "Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you." I pulled her into a hug. I had imagined that moment for weeks, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like mourning the trust our family had lost. The handwriting expert confirmed what I had known from the beginning. My signature had been copied from old documents Ryan secretly collected while pretending to organize my office. He had spent months practicing until he believed no one could tell the difference. He was arrested and later accepted a plea agreement instead of facing a lengthy trial. He lost his business, his reputation, and eventually his marriage. Emily filed for divorce, knowing she could never rebuild a life with someone who had betrayed her father for money. As for me, I placed the land into a protected family trust with strict legal safeguards so no single person could ever transfer it again without multiple independent approvals. I wasn't trying to keep it from my daughter. I was making sure no one could ever manipulate her, or me, again. Sometimes people ask if I hate Ryan. The truth is, I don't carry hate anymore. Hate keeps you chained to the person who hurt you. What I carry now is wisdom. I still walk those 40 acres every morning. I stopped beside the old oak tree my father planted decades ago, and I remember something he once told me. Land isn't the most valuable thing you'll ever own. Your name is. Protect both. He was right. If you've made it this far, I'd really like to know what you would have done if someone in your own family forged your signature to steal everything you worked for. Share your thoughts in the comments because every perspective matters. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who believes family should be built on trust, not greed. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Family Betrayal for more unforgettable stories where the truth always finds its way into the light. Because in the end, forged signatures can steal property for a while, but they can never rewrite the truth.